Hey everybody, Amanda here, CEO of Multitude, the podcast collective that this incredible show is a part of. And before we get started today, I want to tell you about something new that we are doing here at Multitude happening right now. It's the MULTICREW DRIVE. Now, Multitude exists because of the support of listeners like you. And the very best way of supporting Multitude is to join the MultiCrew, a membership program that lets you, our listeners, help fund new work from Multitude and get exclusive perks. So between now and October 1st, we are running the MULTICREW DRIVE. We will be highlighting the ways your support makes a difference and show off all the ways that we pay it back to you, our community. We are running a couple of very cool specials that are not going to happen any other time this year. If you join the MultiCrew by October 1st, you can get a brand new This Mug Supports Conversational Podcasts That Bring People Together mug. Very, very cool. And if you are an annual member at any level on October 1st, you will get your names inscribed forever on the We Put 2023 on Our Back plaque, which we will look at every day in the Multitude office. Some very cool stuff. Check it all out at multicrew.club. To learn more about the MultiCrew Drive, stick around for the mid-roll in this episode where your host will tell you all of the best ways that you can join, or visit multicrew.club to learn more about the drive. All right, let's get the show started.
Welcome to Tell Me About It. Oh, I forget what the beginning is. Hold on. I forgot. I should bring up the actual intro.
That's it. That's the beginning now.
No, I'm
Cold
looking
open.
it up. Welcome to Tell Me About It, a game show about proving that the things you love are actually interesting and fun. I am Eric Silver, usually audio butler, but today you might know me as Eric Silver, producer, showrunner, and co-creator of Tell Me About It. Unfortunately, billionaire Adal Rifai and real Adal Rifai were involved in a long-term cloud fracking scheme, which involved flooding Burning Man, and they're still there today. We cannot find them. Supposedly they were. One of them was the Burning Man, which was the thing that was going to get the clouds going. There was a confusion between smoke and steam. It was a whole thing. So we were doing a different type of episode where we talk about Tell Me About It. You might say, tell me more about it, the production of Tell Me About It.
Good.
And here is our illustrious editor, sound designer, and co-creator of Tell Me About It, Mischa Stanton.
Yes, it's me, the audio butler in real life, instead of the one that's a role on a podcast. Hello.
But I am nice to you.
Yes,
I'm
that is
very nice to you.
That is the distinct and wonderful difference between me, the actual audio butler, and you, the audio butler in the kayfabe.
True. I want everyone to know, in my real life, I get a lot of respect. Everyone likes me and respects me. And it's all good. And I never have the problems that I do on the podcast. First, I want to say that we're doing this episode because Tell Me About It is going on a little bit of a hiatus so that we can start doing more production. We're getting more guests. We're working on more episodes. Mischa needs to buy more springs to do sound design with, all that Foley.
Yeah, because this one, boing, is getting a little old and tired.
Yeah, we got to scour for the right spring, and that's taking a while. So new episodes of Tell Me About It are going to come in late October, but we thought that this was a wonderful idea to talk about where Tell Me About It came from and kind of like drop the kayfabe for a second and just talk about podcasting.
Yeah, tell me about it.
Hell yeah.
Tell me about it.
The
Tell Me About It episode of Tell Me About It.
Yeah. Mischa, can we talk about where the impetus of this show came from? Why did you want... Well, hey, what do you like about this show? Are you happy it exists? Why do you like it?
Yes, I am. So when I first started working at Multitude a couple years ago, you were like, and if you have any ideas for a show, pitch them and we'll work on them. And immediately I was like, I had this idea to do a game show that's not really a game show, that's ostensibly a game show, but it's just really an excuse to have a podcast. I was watching a lot of like newer game shows. Taskmaster rebooted Whose Line with Aisha Tyler, which actually ran longer than the Drew Carey version.
That's wild.
I know.
I get so many Whose Line Is It Anyway TikToks, and they're so good. They're
Every time.
so good.
Yeah. And specifically, I was watching a lot of Game Changer on Dropout and its various spin-offs. And in fact, one thing I loved about Game Changer is like how much figuring out the game was part of the comedy of the show.
Yeah, that was kind of like the entire premise of the show in season 1 and 2.
Yeah, and I loved it. I love because you could really see on the performers' faces that they were like, oh shit, I have to stop being a performer for a second and fucking figure out what's happening to me. Mm-hmm. But when that show kind of developed its various spin-offs, it was geared more towards the improv comedy chops of its wonderfully talented extended cast, which is all well and good, but it really made some of their shows feel a little bit like a flimsy excuse to make a bunch of TikToks in a row on a set. Which is fine. And again, I love TikTok. I love seeing a Game Changer TikTok. But I really wondered, like, could you do the same thing where instead of being made a game show that generates TikToks, it could be a game show that generates a podcast?
Right. It kind of made sense for what they're going for. And if you don't know what we're talking about, Game Changer is on Dropout, which is an app. It's a self-serving streamer that came out of College Humor. You might know them as the Dimension 20 place where you watch Dimension 20 other than your YouTube.
Yeah. Fun fact, they also have a bunch of other shows on that app too.
Yeah. And the intention of the show is to get more people kind of the extended universe to like be on it, and also to promote the stream, but get people to buy the streaming service, which totally makes sense why it's become like a TikTok factory, which I mean in a very truly neutral, I agree with you, Mischa. I mean in a true neutral sort of like, that's their creative intention. But it's kind of funny seeing like what the intentions of all of this are for the particular medium. And that's going to be my next question. Why did you think a fake game show would work for a podcast?
There's a part of podcasting that is really just like, we need any reason to start a conversation. And once the conversation is started, it generates a full conversational podcast episode, you know? And we talk about this at Multitude a lot, actually, where like, once you've got a good following, it's not actually as important that you stick to the subject matter pitch of your podcast. So much as that like people are showing up for you and to hear you talk and to develop a parasocial relationship. And
but in a nice way. But in like a nice,
cool way where I appreciate it and it's good. You know, so I thought that there was room there for like one side of it to be a game show where like the person bringing you in was there to sort of arbitrate and administer points, but have the actual content of the podcast still just be like someone coming on and talking about a cool thing they like. And I was like, what if you could give points for that?
Yeah, I can see where you're coming from in those two ways. Whenever like I talk to podcasters, and podcasters are always embarrassed that they have a popular podcast or that they work hard at a podcast.
It's 2023. We've had podcasts for like 18 years. It's okay to like the thing that you do. It's cool.
Everyone's like, oh, no, it's really just like a hangout sesh, ultimately. And it's like, one, no, it's not. And two, that's good that you could sustain a hangout sesh. The thing is, you don't want a meandering 2.5 hour conversation. Like, oh, what's up? This is Brian and the bros. We're in my mom's basement talking about the third rail of pop culture and politics and whatever crazy stuff comes to our head. Like, you do need a reason to be there. And then I think that they're also, when you don't know what to say next, you can kind of lean on the structure of the show. But if the show is a sham, then it's okay if it's goofy.
Exactly.
Or if it really doesn't matter cosmically. Yeah. I guess is the only adjective for me to say.
Well, that's what's the best part about being a fake game. Yes, there's a scaffolding of structure you can lean on, but the structure is stupid and doesn't matter, so if you leave it, it's also fine.
Right, where the points don't matter in the whose line is it anyway parlance.
Exactly.
Incredible.
So I thought it'd be fun. And, in my mind, it was just like, we'll put in some buzzers and we'll have a good time about it. And I gave this idea to you, Eric, and you were like, okay, I'm going to make this into everything.
It's going to become real. It's alive. Yeah, I think that going back to Taskmaster for a second is really interesting because I think that I want to continue this conversation of like how the game show fits on the particular mediums that we're talking about. So we have Game Changer, we have digital online video, right? And then Taskmaster is an inversion or a play on the British TV show. If you don't know what Taskmaster is, it is okay. So 5 comedians get told by one very large man, who is the Taskmaster, and his little friend, to do a bunch of.
And they're sitting in thrones.
Yeah, and they're sitting in thrones on stage. And basically, they're all invited to do various tasks. However, it's recorded ahead of time, and then the actual television show is watching the recording of the tasks, and then the Taskmaster, who's played by incredibly tall comedian Greg Davies, and Alex Horn, who is the little helper, like, make fun of everyone and give out points. So it's like, it's a show inside of a show. The tasks are interesting and varied and really, really, like, all over the place, and they involve, like, in a very sort of like clever British way, thinking out what's the most interesting or fun or like unexpected way to do it. But then, of course, you'll get roasted in front of an audience on stage by someone who has power and his little friend. And Alex Horn, who's the little friend, is the showrunner. So he runs like pretty much the whole television show.
Oh, I see. I see how it worked out. I see what you did there.
So it's like, if you know things about British TV, they have these things called panel shows, which are not talk shows and not game shows. It's this like once again, an excuse to just kind of hang out.
Yeah, They always, whenever I see a clip of one out of context, it always looks like a game show, but there's never any scores or, like, the only competition is the competition you have with your roommates to, like, who gets the funniest bit the fastest, you know?
Yeah. It's like 4 British comedians are sitting in front of buzzers, but all they're doing are making jokes about each other the entire time. And then eventually it ends.
Yeah.
The episode ends. And that's like an entire genre of like a television channel called Dave, Mischa. It's just named Dave.
Okay, you were so just quick divergence. Throughout your various media properties, you are obsessed with Dave lately.
Yeah, Dave is a comedy channel in the UK, and I decided it's so funny that it's called Dave.
I'll remind you that, like, we had a TV network called Spike. That's a dog's name, man.
That's also funny. It's also funny.
All right, there.
So how this would work for podcasting is exactly like Mischa said. You kind of just need an excuse to have a podcast, or you need an excuse to podcast. Mm-hmm. I think something that people have been figuring out, which is also why we ended up reaching out to Adal Rifai in the first place, is like, hey, no one wants to go to an improv show, so here's a kind of sort of veiled premise, which is in fact improv.
Yeah,
and I think that's happening on like the improv comedy side. And then like there's another excuse of like, we need an excuse to have a conversation about things you care about, which is ultimately what multitude shows are really about. People talking about things they love and sharing and welcoming other people into that.
Well, and also one of the things that you and I and a lot of us at Multitude love are another side of that, like, let's make improv into an actual part of this industry thing, which is actual play shows, which is, again, that loose structure, that excuse to podcast is Dungeons and Dragons. It's just like a scaffolding, an excuse you can fall back on when, like, your improv bits need something in between to glue them together.
Right. But I mean, like, it's good having scaffolding, I think, is the reason why it turned into this thing. Mm-hmm. Like, having a billionaire and an audio butler and a guest instead of just like kind of riffing generally, because like, you know, I don't have any improv experience. So I would rather like have a game. I love coming up with games. That's what I end up doing. The majority of my day is coming up with games that are going to be recorded on a podcast. So I plan every episode of Tell Me About It, and it's fun, like preparing what the mini game's going to be, putting together the Wikipedia information, because we have something to lean on instead of just like figuring out what we're going to riff about for 60 minutes.
Well, and one other thing that Tell Me About It has on D&D shows is like, D&D, everybody's playing a character, and that's the scaffolding. But like here, we just ask people to come in and be heightened, fictionalized versions of themselves. Like, yes, Brendan Lee Mulligan is actually here, but he's also Brendan Lee Mulligan covered in honey. Like, that's funny.
I do like it when we have people who like don't have improv training come on and just like are themselves.
Yeah.
Like we had Dr. Moya McTeer was on and she's just like, I'm here. I'm just going to talk about the thing my PhD is in. I'm like, great. Perfect. I love this.
Well, but even to that extent, there is a certain amount of like, okay, you're you, but you're you if you got black bagged to a billionaire's secret island.
Right. And then like, that's the funny tension, right? Why we made it a billionaire instead of just like this amorphous taskmaster is like the billionaire is like you have a middle ground is like I need to do what he says because I'm in his place, but also he's a buffoon.
Yeah.
And it's like that's such something like the comparison that we've been making is like it's like the most dangerous game where you hunt humans for sport. But like imagine remaking that in 2023, then it's like Glass Onion, right?
Yeah, it is like Glass Onion. It's Elon Musk, whatever the fuck that guy's doing.
Right, like Elon Musk trying to hunt humans for sport is so much funnier of a premise than like the bone-chilling rich people have power. It's like rich people have power and they're also fucking idiots.
Yes.
And I think that's like an extra communicated thing for us to lean on, which I've been enjoying.
Well, and, you know, being an audio medium, the fact that he's a billionaire, so he could conceivably own any object or location on Earth or outside of Earth. And we don't have to, like, draw it. We don't have to make art about it. Like, anything can be asked for in the moment, and then sound design happens, and all of a sudden you're there, and it exists just for as long as it needs to be for it to be funny.
Right, that was the Jenna Stieber episode where we were in a haunted cabin all of a sudden instead of like his giant manse.
Yeah, like there's another episode where like I think he opened a door and like it was a river for Paul Bay to stand in, so you could stand next to each other and have him be your fishing dad. Like, there's just a full woodland stream inside my mansion. Cool, you're rich, I believe it.
Yeah, for sure. So then, after the initial pitch, I feel like I kind of molded it into what this was. We ended up piloting this with Moya, because Moya has shows at Multitude. And she ended up talking about Buffy the Vampire Slayer, which I thought was a really, really good thing. The pilot, we haven't released. We only put it out to people who are like part of like the secret crew of Multitude. and it was really great as a subject matter because it's like people really like this, but there are obvious downsides to this thing that I can make fun of. And for that run, like Mischa was there, but I was kind of doing both sides. I was like being the billionaire and running it at the same time.
Yeah, billionaire showrunner was not the correct division of labor.
No.
And that also just lets, one thing we ran into in that pilot was that like I was trying to manage the technical stuff because I knew I was still going to sound design it. And I was also trying to be low status to you while you were a buffoon 1 minute and trying to read the rules the next. Like the way it is now where you're the audio butler and you have the rules and Adal gets to sit on his throne is like way better. Trust me, guys. It's way better.
It's yeah. I'm trying to think of some of the stuff that were from the pilot. I remember, the mini game that I did was that I looked up academic articles about Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Buffy studies!
And I read the first part, like before the colon, and then I'm like, and then Dr. Moya McTeer, tell me, what is this paper about? Yeah. And it was always like some inversion of like Buffy the Vampire Slayer and queering 21st century feminism. And I was like, no, it was. No, it didn't do that. So that was fun, and Moya did a really good job. Like, and it kind of set the premise for the gotcha questions. Was that obviously we talked about whatever the fuck his name was, the terrible guy.
Joss Whedon.
Of Joss Whedon, yeah. We talked about Joss Whedon, and I really went in on Moya. I was like, I can't believe you like this. While Joss Whedon is like, and this was also right when that article newly came out about Joss Whedon too. Yeah. So there was like, I had a ton of ammo. I'm like, everyone has remembered recently that Joss Whedon was terrible. Charisma Carpenter's talking about it, blah, blah, blah. And Moya gave the best answer because she loves this thing. So she has already reckoned with this idea. She said like, so many people worked on Buffy the Vampire Slayer other than Joss Whedon. And Joss Whedon can say as much as he wants how much he was integral to it and how it was all his brainchild and how he always in love with Buffy. But like, 99.9% of the people who worked on Buffy the Vampire Slayer was not Joss Whedon. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, damn, that's 100% correct.
Well, and I think that's what's a little bit genius about the gotcha questions as part of Tell Me About It is that like it turns from an excuse to talk about your favorite thing into defending your favorite thing and why you love it. Like when people get put on the defensive like that, they really come out swinging, and that's what you want to see when people talk about their favorite thing.
Oh yeah, 100%. And that all kind of coalesced. We were really figuring out how that all fit together, and like how the points were being assigned. But like the bonus points, it's like it just kind of slots in the way that it slots in.
Yeah, well,
I do like having the high scoreboard at the end. Like regardless of whatever goes through Adal's mind when he gives someone a cajillion points, I still like that there is, in fact, both for Adal and for the listeners, I have a record of what ultimately happened.
Well, and I think that was part of the original pitch, was to have a high scoreboard. I think my pitch was to have it be a pin on Twitter, which, like, thank goodness we didn't commit to that and we just stayed on our own platform, because what the hell is Twitter doing right now? But /X.
A long time ago, yeah. A long time ago. But yeah, the high scoreboard was always going to be there.
It's also a really good way to bookend. Like, in the beginning, it's like, hello, tell me about it, and I black bagged you to my secret island, and then show happens, and then at the other end, it's like, and also remember, this is a game, and you're being judged on it, and it's like a good sort of parentheses on the whole thing.
Yeah, and you had to answer a question about Greece, because we're coming back to what we said at the beginning of the podcast. Hey, it's Eric, and I'm no longer a cowering manservant. I am a podcaster, an audio professional, and I want to tell you about something special that Multitude is doing for the next 2 weeks. This is the MULTICREW DRIVE. So the best way you can support Multitude as a podcast company itself is joining the MultiCrew, which is our membership program that lets you, our listeners, help fund new work for Multitude and get exclusive perks. That's why, from now until October 1st, we're running the MultiCrew Drive, where we put 2 weeks away to highlight the ways your support makes a difference and how that support gets paid back to you, our community. Our goal, we want to add 100 new and upgrading members to the MultiCrew by October 1st. By joining the MultiCrew for as little as $5 a month, you get access to amazing perks like exclusive audio content, a whole podcast that only MultiCrew members get, access to our MultiCrew only channels and events on the Discord, and so much more. Here's how it works. If you join or upgrade by October 1st, you get our brand new This Mug Supports conversational podcast that brings people together mug. It is so incredible. It's so cool. Our friends over at DFTBA did an incredible job putting it together. And if you join in an annual plan, you'll be immortalized on the We Put 2023 on Our Back plaque that we're going to hang in the Multitude office. Here's the thing, annual plans are very helpful to us because we can count on a whole year of support instead of varying month to month. So that's why we want to thank our annual members in particular at all tiers with these perks. Plus, you get a discount if you do an annual plan. You get 2 months for free if you sign up for the year. You're only paying for 10, you get 12. So, to join the MultiCrew, head to multicrew.club to sign up for our annual memberships before October 1st, 2023, and receive these amazing perks, plus the mug, and be on the plaque if you're an annual member. Remember, sign up, annual membership, multicrew.club, join the MultiCrew. Hello to our newest patrons for Tell Me About It, Kendall and, this is the full name, imagine having a nonsense word as your display name for 6 months and then constantly forgetting to change it. Couldn't be me. Sorry. That is the full name. Imagine that you get to make me read whatever you want if you become a patron at patreon.com/TMAI pod. We are sponsored this episode by Hero Forge. Hero Forge offers fully customizable tabletop minis with dozens of fantasy species and thousands of parts to choose from. You can put those minis together on your browser. It's so easy to do. Our easy-to-use design tool lets you build your perfect miniature online using a fully 3D in-depth character creator right in your web browser. Hero Forge is constantly expanding its catalog of customizable options. They add new parts every week, and they add major features like new species and custom posing on a regular basis. The Hero Forge team is always adding new stuff. You can see on their Instagram. They're just like, oh, hey, we made some incredibly articulate swords, if that's something you like. They're like, yes, of course they do, because I'm using Hero Forge. Also, if you're bad at doing stuff with your hands like me, then you're going to love Hero Forge's 2.0 color technology that allows you to create your perfect miniature in color with advanced features like decals, makeup, war paint, and more. Design your unique minis and get it printed in full color. No painting required. Your role-playing world is colorful. Now your miniatures can be too with Hero Forge. Visit heroforge.com to start designing your custom mini today and check back often. New content is added every week. We are also sponsored by Creart from Ravensburger. Did you know that Ravensburger produces more than just the classic jigsaw puzzles and board games that we all know so well? Yeah, it's true. Introducing Creart by Ravensburger for the millennial, the ultimate painting by number experience. You'll find everything you need to start your artistic journey today with Ravensburger's carefully curated painting by number kits. Whether you're a seasoned artist seeking a new challenge or a beginner eager to explore the world of painting, Ravensburger's kits cater to all skill levels and ages. Embrace the therapeutic benefits of painting by number. See, this is the millennial part. As you melt away the stresses of trying to live in the 21st century and find solace in the act of creation without facing the pressure of a blank canvas. Have a hobby. For once, get a hobby. Don't monetize it. Just do it. Easily explore Ravensburger's wide selection of enchanting designs ranging from majestic landscapes to adorable animals and everything in between. Let your imagination run wild and embrace the joy of painting with Creart by Ravensburger. Shop Creart on Amazon today. And now, back to the show.
I don't even know the answer to this question. Adal picked Grease, right?
Adal was kind of our first choice for who's going to be the host of Tell Me About It, because he had done similar stuff. Like, I really like the Patreon of Hey Riddle Riddle, where like sometimes they run just like sometimes they do like a quiz where Adal gives away like his possessions or like give someone like a gift card. I'm like, oh, that's really funny. And there's just like a manic energy to that I gravitated for this particular role. And Adal's favorite movie is Grease. So I thought it would just be funny to put this in. I wanted the entire time that the billionaire liked something that no one else liked. I wanted there to be the tension, but always there were going to be tension between I like something, but you like something, and this is my show, so I'm going to win ultimately, even if it doesn't have anything to do with the scoring. Yeah.
Well, that's also a little bit part of what I was saying before about like when you make someone defend the thing they love, then they come out swinging.
Yeah. And I guess I was being extra goofy. I'm like, no, we're going to talk about Grease, the movie musical, in every episode.
Well, I think it's so funny, right? Because, like, you start out with the obvious trivia questions to Grease, but, like, I'm just trying to imagine what happens when we're 50 episodes in and we just have to find the most esoterica about the movie Grease. Like, we have to find the most minute things.
I know, but, like, no one's going to get that. I think I'm going to have to redo some. Because I am running out of trivia questions already. And like so few people have gotten these correct. So I think I'm just going to reuse some.
All right. That's, they won't know, but you, the listeners, will know. Start calling out your favorite Grease answers.
You can yell at how old all the ages of the people of the cast of Grease are. Then you can yell at that.
Text all of your answers to Grease2323.
And if you want to vote for Ruben Studdard, do 23231. Incredible. Mischa, you're doing more than just being my little audio butler, my little guy who lives under the stairs, because but I'm nice to you, so you have like a nice kind of like nook there down on the stairs.
It's cool. Like it's really well padded and there's air conditioning.
Yeah, it's like a dog's house in like a rich community.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, that's exactly what it's like. Thank you for putting me in your doghouse, Eric.
It's like, why does this dog need bohemian lights? Why does it need an oversized pillow? I don't know. How is this dog's bed from Casper mattresses? I guess. I don't know.
Gotta get those partnerships on Instagram, baby.
Gotta get it. Mischa, you do a lot of audio jokes. You do a lot of sound design that comes into a show that you would not expect there to be sound design for.
Yeah.
Let's talk about it. Why do you like doing it? Where do you think its presence fits into something that is kind of just like not explicitly audio fiction, which is where you would see sound design mostly?
Yeah. When we did the first original pilot, it was more traditional, like kind of stand-in for game show design. It was like there are bells and buzzers and, little game show noises. And that was fine. It was like, okay, it sold the premise enough as a proof of concept. But you took it to find one of the best improvisers we could find to be the host of the show, and also unrestrained him from having to also be the rules arbiter. So, are
you saying that was a mistake? Are you saying that was a bad idea?
I'm saying that the show was unshackled to be as zany as anybody wanted it to be. And like, sure, at an improv show, somebody can say like, yes, step into my rooftop garden. And like, the audience will go with them. But wouldn't it be funny if as soon as you said something, you could hear it? And like, we exist in a non-visual medium. It's pretty cheap to put sound effects in. Like, it doesn't cost an art budget, you know? Like, I could just do it. It takes me like an extra, hour or whatever.
Right.
And when we were developing the first couple episodes, I was like, Eric, what's the philosophy behind what we're looking for sound design-wise? And you really were like, yeah, you don't have to do everything, but like, if it elevates what's happening, throw it in there. Do it if it's really funny. And I heard that and I went, oh, Roger Rabbit rules. You can't do it all the time, but you can only do it if it's funny. And I've taken that and I just ran with it.
Yeah, I think that I remember doing this. I remember seeing this a lot in kind of like the food cooking boom. Like, do you remember when you first watched the Brad Leone videos on Bon Appetit?
No, I'm sorry. You have asked the person who doesn't exist on YouTube very much at all. But I
That's
will
fine.
Pretend. Yeah, of course I know what that thing is.
So if you remember Bon Appetit, before they blew up and had their big problems, Bon Appetit was a juggernaut on video on YouTube, and they found this like thing that people love, these food things. And there was a goofy style that came from this guy Brad, who was just like this big goofy man, which of course is the only type of man who there's the type of man who would succeed out here on YouTube. But it's like all of the post stuff. Like they would add all of these graphics and put jokes on the graphics. Like if Brad said like he was a real Long Island guy, so he would say words weird all the time. So they would like phonetically spell out the weird words he would say.
That's
or
funny.
like keep a counter of like all of the jars he used if he was doing a pickling project. Like visual gags that were only added in post. So there was a conversation, I think, between the recorded video, the editor, and then the audience. It's like it went through multiple steps of the process. Like everyone got their hand on the ball at different times. And I think that I've seen this in podcasting sometimes. I mean, another reference, because Casey Toney is very, very talented over at Hey Riddle. He again is an incredible sound designer, has worked on a ton of audio fiction and actual play stuff. And then just like really turns these improv scenes on Hey Riddle into something that feels a little real, even if, of course, it's this little improv scene. It's this total joke. It feels like, and even just the sound design setting, but then like enhancing jokes by giving it sound effects. And I think if we push that to its ultimate limit, which is like, if you think something's funny, Mischa, put it in. Go ahead and do it. We can really just like, it's you, even though you're not at the recordings, you can still make jokes.
Yeah, and I do appreciate that. It's not very often that I get asked for my comedic sensibilities in post-production. Usually it's just, here's the script, do it. And for Tell Me About It, it's really like, Adal said some stuff, man. What do you think? You think you could do it? You think it's funny? Like, do it, man.
Yeah. And I mean, I hope it's funny. I think that this is the thing. Going back to what we said about like making an excuse to have a conversation, the show should be involved in the recording and the production. I say this a lot when we make shows over here at Multitude. It's like there's a lot of people in the room when you're recording. It's the people, it's the hosts and the guest, and the audience is there because remember you have to do it. It has to be for public consumption. But then also the show's in the room. So if you're dying and you don't know what to say next, be like, "Hey show, what do we do next?" And that's you looking at your rigid notes, looking at the rigid structure of the show, and it's like, okay, I'm going to go to the next round because I've kind of run my piece with this riff. And I think the Tell Me About It kind of exemplifies that. Pre-production and post-production are the hard parts of podcasting. And then production, recording is just trying to capture lightning in a bottle and have fun.
Yeah. And I think honestly, like the sound design is kind of the same way. I also like every sound effect that I pick that goes in the show goes through a process where I listen to 5 other sound effects that are just like it. And I picked one. It's to give like a really, really sort of overt example. Like when you're sound designing something, you can find any scream that anybody has recorded, or you can pick the Wilhelm scream, which is a very famous Scream sound effects that has like overt extra added feelings that come with it whenever you use it now, because so many people are in on that joke. Like you can't help but also take with it the context in which it lives. But there's a lot of other sound effects that are like that. For example, there's one iconic like pottery breaking sound effect, and it was used in like Wet Hot American Summer, but also everywhere. Like I could use any plate breaking, or I can use that one that you'll know what it is as soon as you hear it, and it'll make you think of all the other times you laugh at it.
Oh, that's when Paul Rudd threw the plate and it broke off screen.
It's not just a plate, it's whenever they throw anything off screen in Wet Hot American Summer and it breaks, they use that no matter what it is, they use the same pottery sound effect. And so there's a few sound effects that are like that. And, every design thing about it is a choice. And I get to sift through my giant library and be like, which one would be the funniest here? And I do get to put my comedic sensibilities in those choices. And it's fun.
I like the idea you're like a gardener going through the garden and like picking out these sound effects and like smelling it and be like, no, not for my bouquet.
The sommelier, yeah.
Yeah, you're swirling it around, be like, ooh, this Scream has legs.
Yeah, in my apartment, there's a giant 40-gallon cask of sound effects, and I just sprig the tap.
It's made the old way. Mischa, can you put 10 Wilhelm screams in a row right here?
Right here. Ready, go. No, I wouldn't do that to you.
No, do it. No, I wanted to do it.
Okay.
That sounds great. Mischa, I think as much as I love this peek behind the curtain, I'm feeling a little, I feel like a little naked. Everyone's seeing what my production is like. Are there any episodes that you liked? What's some of your favorite eps that we've done so far? I know we've only done 16, but.
Yeah, I mean, the Paul Bay one is just so unhinged. Like, Paul knows how to
I want to say, Paul did not tell us he was going to do this. We gave him the same prep that everyone else got, which is, Paul, be yourself and talk about fly fishing. And he decided to do this because he's been inside and did not have someone to make jokes with for an extended period of time.
And also, I've known Paul for like a while, and I could have told you he was going to take it in a direction that you wouldn't believe, because that's what always happens. You're like, hey, Paul, tell us about that time you used to be a youth pastor. And he'll be like, oh, you mean the time I ran in the middle of a night from a cult? Because that's like, Paul just escalates things. That's how he goes.
I know.
And you'll
really
never see
did
it coming
escalate it.
because it's the same tone of voice as normal things.
Yeah, he very much escalated it.
I think it's really fun, as much as pop culture things are a good touchstone for a very wide audience, and like people really do love the movies that they love and the TV shows that they love and the books and the games that they love. But like, I do find it really interesting whenever we do a topic that is like someone's mundane niche expertise, like Amanda's retirement plans episode or Moya's exoplanets episode. When you're doing a pop culture one, you sort of walk in and like Adal knows something about it, or if he doesn't, it's easy to sort of like find a movie and watch it real quick. But like, what could Adal possibly know about exoplanets before Dr. Moya McTeer walks into the room? Like, and there's just like a certain amount of, sometimes it even breaks through the kayfabe where like he'll forget to be a taskmaster billionaire and just be genuinely curious about the topic. And I love those moments.
I felt that way about Janet Varney's one. Janet Varney's was so specific. She's like, I went to this museum and I think it's really sick. I'm like, great. There are 3 miniature museums. We're going to talk about those. Yeah. That sounds great. Yes, I loved Amanda's retirement ones as well. Also, that was like one of the only podcast episodes anyone in my family has ever listened to.
Wow, you got your family to listen to a podcast you make? What's that like?
Yeah. Hey, if you're any podcasters out there and your family listens to your podcast, you're lucky. Yeah. That doesn't happen to everyone. Actually, very few people that happens to.
My mom came to see a production that I did at my high school of Carousel, Rodgers and Hammerstein's Carousel, and I was on the stage crew, and I made her come see that, and ever since then I can't get her to consume media that I make. That's it. I burned her on the first
Carousel.
one. Yeah, I know. I burned it on Carousel, and she was like, Mischa, Don't ask me to come see things you do anymore.
I know. My mom listens to other podcasts. She just doesn't listen to any of mine. She's like, I don't get it. I'm like, okay, but be supportive. She does listen to some. Tell me about it. And if you're listening at this point, Mom, hello, hi. Thank you for listening.
You know what you might enjoy about this podcast? Your son is in it.
Yeah. So she likes the ones she likes the ones of the subject matter she understands. So I can only pick out tell me about it that she might actually like.
Eric, you should get your mom on Tell Me About It.
No, she would love that too much. No, she wants to be on all of the shows. No. I already put her on one of the other shows. I put her on the show that we had with Nicole Perkins called This Is Good For You, which is about guilty pleasures. And I had my mom come on to talk about speed skating. She got really into speed skating after the divorce with my dad. And it was really empowering and everything. And I'm like, yeah, Nicole is yeah, people are going to eat this shit up. And now ever since then, she's like, I'm going to come back on a podcast. And I'm like, no, I gave you your shot. I can't have my mom come on where I'm that low status. I don't think I can do it. I don't know.
I think nothing would be funnier than for your mom and billionaire Adal Rifai to team up and roast you. That's pretty funny, Eric. I don't know.
I don't want this. I don't want this at all. This is my nightmare.
Then it's a good thing that you run the show, huh?
And then I still have to show run the episode.
Yeah.
It's hey, Adal, can you redo this and stop making fun of me in front of my mom thing? And I have to get my mom set up to record, so I'm monitoring that, and also while she's roasting me. I don't know if I can do that.
That would be so funny.
No. Write it, email us if that's what you want. If that's really what you want, I can get my mom on, but I'm going to take so much psychic damage. It's going to be crazy. Oh my God. Listen, and especially if you haven't listened to any of the shows on Multitude, I think that you'll like all of them. I do 2 other shows. Mischa edits a lot of them, and I love making the show with Mischa. Mischa, I feel like you really understand where I'm coming from. This was your idea to begin with, and it kind of grew, but then once it ballooned past what you came up with, I feel like you're oh yeah, everything you're saying totally makes sense. Yeah, we can 100% do this. And it's nice being able to pass over the raw audio to you. And you're yeah, for sure. This totally makes sense. I'm going to edit it. I'm going to sound design it. Not in I'm not just giving it to you. I trust it to you. You're going to do the thing you're going to do. And I know you're going to do it. And that's what's going to happen.
And I appreciate that trust because you're right. I am going to do what I am going to do. And hopefully it's good, and everyone seems to think it's good and that they like it, so I'm just going to keep doing that.
I like the iron lung. The iron lung you did was really funny.
Yeah, and that's also, again, going back to those recurring sound effects, is when there's a recurring bit in the episode, I won't just use 3 versions of the thing and make it sound like there's a real object. I will use the same exact one because that sounds like a sound button that I'm pressing, and that's funny.
Yeah, it's very funny. It's you're sitting somewhere else using a soundboard, and that's very funny.
That's the vibe I'm trying to give, is there's an extra guy in the control room that is at a giant keyboard, and I just press all the buttons as Adal says them to support whatever is going on. There's just an enormous amount of trust that you put in me to make the show good and fun, and I get to play. It's great.
That's what we're trying to do. We're just trying to make it good and fun. And I will be low status while that all happens. I'll do it. Oh, I want to give a shout out to the synthesizer episode. When Mike Rugnetta came in and gave me the synthesizer to play with, I was just ha ha ha, Adal can't take this away from me. I'm playing with it with real life outside of the kayfabe. And then I was legitimately entertained by the entire thing.
Well, the kayfabe we talk about is, again, you gave me that mandate of don't do it all the time, only do it if it's funny. This show also is yeah, stick with the kayfabe. Don't do it all the time. Only do it when it's funny. When it's funny to break the kayfabe, get rid of it. All in service to getting that podcast gold that we can just put up on people's feeds. We're truly any maneuver, any tactic that we can use to get funny audio, we will do it here.
It's also a funny conversation of like what it's like to be a guest on a podcast. I think it's kind of a meta commentary on guesting on a podcast where you're like, oh, hey, yeah, just come on, talk about your favorite thing. And then all of a sudden there's all of this is happening around you. And there's buzzers and weird questions and bits and rounds. And like, I always say, I'm like, do you want to know what happens? And usually people are like, nah, I'll figure it out. I just don't, you don't have to prep
Do
anything.
they?
Most of the time they're like, I'll figure it out. But so it's always funny being like, yeah, a billionaire is going to yell at you with his little audio butler there. And then you're going to be like, hey, here's my plugs. I had a great time.
And, well, it's also a commentary on like, doesn't anybody asking you to be on a podcast feel a little like being black bagged to a remote island? Just a little.
Just a little bit. Yeah, all of a sudden you wake up and it's like, all right, we record for 3 hours. We are going to record at midnight because we all live in a different time zone than you. And yeah, you're just going to have to show up and then maybe someone will listen to it, maybe not. Who can say? Who even knows? So I'm realizing we've like created this commentary of the thing. But I listen, I love it. I love making the show. And all of you who are listening, who told people about the show, who jumped in from the beginning, thank you so much. And please make sure to tell people about this. The only way the podcasts grow is when they get recommended by people. That's science. Science said that is that a person needs to give this to another person for them to actually hit the subscribe button. So if you like what we do, if you like what Adal's doing, if you like the guests, we're planning on getting more interesting guests who you know and you love and people who you'll meet who have interesting ideas. I think you're really going to love it. So tell people about the show.
Tell me about it.
Hell yeah. Once again, we are taking a break to do some production stuff. We're going to be back in late October, still on a Thursday, like regular.
The October bouquet of sound design will be particularly fresh.
I know you'll break out. We'll
come out of the cask ready to go.
You'll break out all your spooky Halloween shit, regardless of whatever the subject is.
It's a second barrel right next to the first barrel of sound effects in my living room in my apartment, and it's just got a big theremin painted on the front because that's the spookiest instrument.
Is the spooky, scary skeleton song, is that public domain? Can we use that?
Absolutely not.
I thought it was for like a 1940s cartoon. I don't know.
Just because things are from 1940s cartoons does not make them public domain, as we all have learned.
All right, we're gonna get out of here. Please stick around, tell your friend about the show, and that was tell me more about it, or whatever I said at the beginning of the episode.
That's what you said. No, very good.
Tune in again next week for a big barrel of effects, the Wilhelm scream, and Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Say goodbye, Mischa.
Goodbye, Mischa.